Okay, so thank you for joining us. We are having a quick chat today with Paultons Park about the launch of their Tornado Springs new addition to the park and the self-service that has come along in their new hospitality outlet. Their sort of operational logistics and sort of why they chose to go down the whole self-service route. So today, joining me, I've got Lee Drew, who is the Managing Director at Jugo Systems, part of the HBP group. And from Paultons Park, we've got Stephen, who is the Commercial Director, who's going to run through a few of the logistics with us. So just to get us started then, Stephen, if you can just sort of tell us a little bit about the launch of Tornado Springs and what impact that's having on the park, and why you've chosen to go down the route of self-service hospitality kiosks.
Yeah, no problem at all. Tornado Springs is a concept we started working on probably 3 years ago as a completely new area to the park. It covers sort of 4 acres with 8 new rides and attractions, and also we included within the land a new shop and a new restaurant, both of which are themed very much to Tornado Springs, which is a town, mythical town in middle of America, back in the late 50s, early 60s, and very much themed with Americana and the such like, with very highly detailed. And the restaurant and the shop, as I say, are themed in a very similar vein. The restaurant also complements Route 83, as we call it, complements all our other F&B kiosks and outlets we have around the park. And the objective was very much to have a themed restaurant in line with everything within Tornado Springs, but also to complement all our other F&B facilities around the park. We wanted a restaurant that served high quality food, quick and efficiently, and in a manner that gave some alternative choices to other food and beverage offices we had around the park. I very much think we achieved that. When we were scoping out the concept, we thought rather than just looking at the food, we needed to look at the whole process, not in terms of how the food was going to be prepared, how customers were going to be ordering it, how it would communicate, the orders would communicate into the kitchen to very much get the speed of service and efficiencies. So we sat down with Lee and the team in the very early stages and sort of scoped this out. And obviously at the time, other fast food outlets, etc., were just starting to move into self-service, and I think although they've been around for maybe a while longer, they were starting to certainly have more in the restaurants, and got to the point now where there's more self-service tills than there are manual tills. So Lee introduced us to the concept in terms of what hardware was available, and then we started talking in terms of, well, okay, this hardware is available. How do we integrate that into our KC-POS EPOS system? Because obviously we didn't want to start working on a separate system, etc., etc. And then the conversation sort of developed in, well, okay, then if you've got that as part of the, in terms of the customers actually placing the orders, etc., which was all fine, and very much went down the cashless sort of route as well, which was sort of, it was efficient and the way the customers were definitely starting to go. How do we actually communicate the orders into the kitchen, etc., to get that speed of service and efficiencies? And that's when we started integrating KC-POS and the terminals very much into the Logwood system, which is a sort of a fairly generic kitchen management system, and that worked very well. So now we've got sitting here now, sort of 3 days after opening, we have sort of customers coming into the restaurant, placing their orders onto the self-service tills, paying for their order at the time, all integrated into all our other requirements, such as taking gift cards and all the other specialist bits and pieces that we have in terms of that transactional process. The order then goes into the kitchen and is split to go to the various different preparation stations, depending on what that order is. and then it all comes forward and is then sort of bumped off as we call it when the food's prepared and the customers actually pick the orders up. And again, whilst, as always, there's probably a little bit of refinement that's gone on over the last 3 or 4 days, it has sort of worked really well. And the really pleasing thing is the guests absolutely seem to be very familiar with the process in terms of placing the orders, as opposed to every other outlet we've got around the park is the traditional sort of member of staff in front of a till. So yeah, we're delighted in terms of how it's gone so far.
That's brilliant, really good. It sounds like it's definitely been a really good step forward for you. How have I know you mentioned that the customers have adopted it quite well. In terms of the staff and the training and that sort of side, how's that gone down for you?
Actually, very well. I mean, from the staff point of view, actually, once we'd got through the setup of the actual self-service tills and the back office bit, which the F&B team sort of manage and are getting used to, very much with the training that sort of Lee and his team have given them, and all the photography that we've had to do in a specific way that actually fits the kiosk. That took was new, but the team now I think have very much got their heads around that and how that all works. But actually, operationally in the kiosk, actually there is sort of there's very little for them to do apart from replacing the till rolls. The sort of the end of day routine is just done on an existing till, and that seems to have gone well. The absolute adoption of it, I think, has been first class.
Brilliant, that's really good. And from a practical point of view, maybe Lee, what's been involved? What have Stephen's team had to do in terms of getting self-service live in a theme park such as Paultons?
Yeah, so I think the good thing is where we kind of integrate it into the existing back office and EPOS systems. It wasn't sort of learning something completely new from scratch. There's also some new processes because you've got to think about the guests. You've got to present them with everything on self-serve. So every question, every picture, and all the information they're expecting when they order. But as sort of Steve mentioned, once the photos which look brilliant are all on there for the guest, they kind of know exactly what they're getting. It's a really simple process, and obviously once that's done, it's just really small tweaks along the way. But as Steve mentioned again, from a staff point of view, there's very little to do because they're really the emphasis on the guest to place the order, and then obviously we just feed that through into the kitchen, and it's something that the guests as well are very much used to seeing elsewhere.
Yeah,
I think also that as part of we involved the F&B team as part of the development process as well. So we have sort of status polls, as we call them, which is the lights. So if a customer has got a query, they can call for assistance. That may be anything from a query in terms of what something is to an allergen or something like that. And also the restaurant is licensed as well. So if anyone's ordering sort of a beverage, they can it just automatically flashes, so we can actually, the supervisor can just say yes, they're over 18, and it is part of the meal. So all that sort of, if you like, operational stuff was built in very much in the early stages, which I think has again worked pretty well.
Brilliant. And obviously, you've been live and you've been running for a few days now since reopening, which is brilliant. I know you mentioned briefly that the customers are familiar with the type of software, having seen it maybe in other hospitality outlets. Has the adoption been quite well? Are people confused by it, or is everybody sort of using it and it's working to how you expect it to be working?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, obviously we're working slightly different processes to what we would normally do because of opening in a COVID environment. And for example, we haven't got indoor seating, so we're staggering people entering the restaurant in terms of the foyer where all the self-service tills are. So make sure social distancing and all that sort of good stuff. And we're giving them a menu beforehand, so they get the opportunity just to have a look and see what they want. And that's primarily because the rest of their party is seated outside, so they've got everybody's order for the party as opposed to just the one. So they are sort of preset, but they certainly seem to have got the hang of how it works. We've tried to set it up as simply as possible, and with the very straightforward menu options, rather than having I'll have this and take this, this, and this out. We tended to have the this is the item and this is the item, rather than having lots of variability within it. Albeit the system actually is built to actually be able to include all that variation if at any time we want to do it. So it's something that we can grow into it if we need to. And also the kitchen has been designed to deal with that variability, again, should we require. So yeah, we have tried to build as much flexibility into it in the early stages. I think that's right, Lee.
Yeah. So again, later on, if you want to offer an option where the guests can remove the tomato or those sorts of things, it can do. But I think sort of testament to it working sort of really streamlined is making it simple at the point of order. The more complexity the guests can do means that it puts extra load on the kitchen. And during peak times, that the limiting the amount of sort of customization, I think, has been key, certainly initially anyway.
Yeah, it's something that I think we've learned over the years as well, is that with anything new, it's quite easy to overcomplicate it as well. So we very much tried to step back a little bit and check ourselves in trying to make the offerings as simple as possible, and have been designed very much with the self-service tills in mind, rather than taking something that is sort of manual, for want of a better word, with the variability, and then trying to put it onto the self-service tills. And I think that certainly worked, and we've certainly had only positive feedback so far on that, which is positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously self-service is becoming more and more popular in the industry, in sort of these sorts of larger attractions where speed of service is key, because a lot of people they need a break for their lunch or whatever it might be, but they need that sort of food to be delivered to them fast. They need that the service to be as fast as it possibly can. So can you see this as being something that is going to develop and grow within your park at the moment?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, in fact, we've already had conversations in terms of another outlet that we could probably sort of look to roll out the technology to, which will work, I think, quite well. We've again 3 days in, but we're just sort of starting to look at that. There are obviously, from an operational point of view, where very much we stand is that, yes, we haven't got staff sort of on the till manning the tills, so we're saving from that perspective. But those staff then are reallocated to actually preparing the food and serving the food. It's focusing the resource in something that actually can turn things around quicker, if that makes sense. That would be very much the case in other outlets. It won't necessarily work in all outlets, but where it is suitable, we have a number of outlets similar to Route 83 ish. I think it would work well, and of course, as all the heavy lifting is already done in terms of development, etc. It shouldn't be that difficult just to include another branch and move it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your point of view, Lee, if there's an attraction that's wanting to add self-service to as part of their hospitality offering, how much time have Paultons had to put in? How much involvement has there been on their side compared to our side, and what's that sort of commitment that people would be looking at?
Well, I think obviously now that we've kind of gone through the sort of development process and possibly a couple of 100 hours of time and testing, that really kind of all of the sort of legwork has sort of been done. And as sort of Steve mentioned, not just elsewhere, but here, we can drop it into another branch, or any attraction, I guess, can drop it in, no different to a till now, really. There's a bit of extra commitment in terms of some photography and a bit of extra setup, but not a huge amount of time, in the grand schemes of a project or anything of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. So yeah, really just to round up, was there obviously this self-service has had a positive impact in the last few days since launching, and do you see this then as being the sort of the future of hospitality outlets, or with its success at the moment, or sort of how do you see the future of hospitality outlets and their service?
I think for sort of for fast service, where it is a fairly straightforward menu, I think absolutely it is the way forward. But again, I think, as always with these things, it's not one glove doesn't necessarily fit all. And there are other technology solutions that can be had, which we have available in the park, that are being sort of integrated into KC-POS. Table ordering via the app, for example, being one, which is available, and pre-ordering via the internet, and those sort of solutions. So yeah, I mean, technology is definitely playing its part, but I think it's very much a mix of technology and the human interface, because it needs to make sure at the end of the day that there's a quality product being served at the end of it, irrespective of how it's transacted. And I think it is a very important and emerging part of the mix. And also, operationally, it's in the restaurants as busy and as complex as Route 83, that there's always occasionally items go out of stock, or demand's been higher than we may originally envisage at the start of the day. Not very often, but these things do happen in any kitchen. But it's very easy to take something off sale and all that sort of bits and pieces, which is also operationally very good. That was sort of part of the process that was briefed at the initial part. So I think between all the parties involved in the development, hopefully we've come out of it something that operationally works very well. The customers certainly seem to appreciate it, because of course if they can transact quicker and they get their food quicker, then that's absolutely going to work for them. It's driven efficiencies internally from our point of view as well, in that any staff's savings we can utilize in a more, I hesitate to use the word, but value-added activities in physically preparing and serving the food.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. And do you have any final thoughts, Lee, on self-service and the implementation that's gone through at Paultons?
Yeah, I think sort of Steve mentioned the kind of mixture of the different technology now, I guess. So traditional fixed tills, self-service, and we're sort of mobile ordering as an option now, so that the guests can almost choose their preferred option. So if they are walking across the park, you can order your lunch and collect it, or if traditionally you want to physically go to a till and talk to someone, you can, or you can use self-serve. I think necessary self-serve or the app doesn't always fit every outlet, but by having kind of the option to have all of those combined, you can kind of pick and choose where sort of it fits best, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you very much both for sparing some time to run through this, and let's hope the continued success carries on with the launch of Tornado Springs and self-service.
Thank you very much.
No problem.